Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad, abdika wa nabiyyika wa rasulika nabiyil ummi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to Discover You, the Discovery Life podcast. My name is Razia Hamidi. I am the CEO of Discover You. I'm blessed to be part of an incredible organization. Discover You is the world's leading organization in self-development programs. And alhamdulillah, we've been around since 2007. Sheikh Mohamud, who was one of the founders, may Allah have mercy on him. And we bring you programs that support Muslims be the hero of their story by never taking Allah from the center. Allah has always got to be part of that equation. So alhamdulillah, being on that path of growth and tazkiyah. And today in our conversation, alhamdulillah, I'm so excited because we've got Sister Adil, who, mashallah, I want to introduce her properly. She's the founder and host of the Digital Sisterhood podcast, a platform that is dedicated to amplifying the voices and stories of Muslim women in the digital realm. With her passion for empowering women, fostering inclusivity, exploring the intersection of technology and storytelling, the Digital Sisterhood provides a platform for meaningful conversations and insights. She's legendary, you guys, mashallah. She, subhanAllah, at such a young age, she's been able to cultivate such a powerful, incredible community. And the Digital Sisterhood, I think you guys were like ranked #1 in the world at one point on Apple, like on all the podcast streaming platforms. Like, how incredible. So welcome, Adil.
No, Jazakallah khair. I'm honestly so excited to be here and to be in a conference. First of all, I just want to say how iconic it is to be even, talking to you about dua. It's just, you're just, when I think of dua, I think of you kind of the face of that. You know what I'm saying? After Muhammad Shaykh Sharif, may Allah have mercy on him, grant him the highest level of Jannah. I mean, so it's like really, it feels like full circle a little bit. So I'm honestly deeply honored, honestly. Wallahi.
Alhamdulillah. It's such a blessing to whenever we get to sit down with someone who's mashallah gone on that journey with God, we get to dissect it into a conversation and people get a lens behind the scenes. So that's what today's conversation is about for everyone who's here. Sometimes we at Discovery we are people of dua, right? We are Sheikh Muhammad designed his life by dua. And what that means sometimes is hard to translate. And so when you get a case study, when you actually get to dive into someone's life and get the nuances, the details, those pivotal points, that's what you're going to get today. What does it actually look like to live life by dua? What does it mean and look like to design your life by dua? And how do you continue on that path? And of course, this podcast is brought to you guys by Visionaire Ramadan, which is alhamdulillah the live program that happens every Ramadan in Discover You, founded by Sheikh Mohammed rahmatullah. And Visionaire was basically, him, alhamdulillah, understanding and creating this experience where you are finally able to unlock the power of dua in your life. And this isn't like a fit course, it isn't about, learning how to make dua. No, this is finally harnessing the weapon of the believer in the way that many of us are disconnected from and we don't realize it. And inshallah, I hope today through Ethel's story, you're going to unlock that. So Umayma is going to share the link in the comments. You guys join us. We have a 5-day free challenge happening. We've got like Sheikh Yasir Qadi, Sheikh Omar Suleiman, Sheikh Amar Ustad Mia, myself, and we're going to be doing like 5 days packed of like amazing sessions to help you start this journey, and then shall I give you a window into how do you go into Ramadan where you're jumping out of bed because you can't wait to make du'as, and that's what inshallah I hope to unpack today. So Jazakallah khair, Adil. And I have to say, it's so crazy, you guys. She lives in Toronto, so do I, and we met finally in person the first time in Qatar, and here we are now on Zoom together, but like we still have not connected in person in the city, and so I hope at some point we'll finally do that.
Inshallah, we have to. I mean, it'd be so strange for us.
Well, we're living our dream, dua, so we live out of suitcases, right, Adil? Like you and I.
Absolutely, absolutely. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. That's awesome. So one of the things or kind of starting points I wanted to dive into, and I'm sure, mashallah, there's a lot of your listeners here who might be familiar with the story, but I hope they get a new appreciation of it from a different lens. Take me back to, Adil's, where she's at in her mindset in her life before the podcast has started, and she's thinking about like, what am I going to do in my life? Like, what's my contribution? Like, where's your headspace at? Because mashallah, for at a young age, like you've really, harnessed that. So I'm very curious, like, where were you at before you started this journey? And what was your relationship and your understanding when it came to dua in your life?
Yeah. When I think about this, I really think about the beginning. I became more conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And for me, it really started, I guess, a little later to some people, but to some others, like it's maybe around the same time where people become more conscientious of the kind of person they are. And for me, I was a school wall. Well, in my episode, I talked about being a wallflower. I was a really, really like, I was a big wallflower. I tried to disappear as much as I could. I mean, that was kind of a contest for me. But I was also really good at school at the time. And, being a first generation immigrant in my house, academics is so important and so important. It's like sometimes it feels like it's your ticket to making your parents' sacrifices matter, right? And so in my time, I was like thinking about trying to get into the best school. I was thinking about getting, a job. I was visioning something so completely different. And so alhamdulillah, my parents were very lucky to put me in a position where I was rubbing elbows and competing with people who were wealthier than me and who had better opportunities than I did because of the sacrifices they made. And so for me, it was all about, academics. I didn't really think about religion. I knew I was Muslim. I called myself Muslim. However, I didn't practice like one. My parents obviously were very, practicing. They were Muslims and they prayed their salahs, but I think for them they had a different strategy in how to incorporate Deen with me, and I think they just struggled a little bit because I was like, it's just not my mind right now, And so
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't until I had traveled with my mother to a Muslim country, and I'd never been to a Muslim country, and it shook me to my core. It was quite literally a culture shock to see Muslim women wear hijab, feel confident, look beautiful, look normal. Nobody, it was like I felt abnormal dressing how I was dressing at the time. And
Yeah.
so for me, it caused a lot of questions about what did I believe in? And so all that existential crisis happened for me at 20 years old. And then, alhamdulillah, there was one night, I always say, I talked about it on the podcast, one night. And this is why I think this night is so important to me because I spent 10 years trying to study why that dua got accepted. Because
Mm-hmm.
after that one dua that got accepted, which is simply that for Allah to guide me, to which I think He did, right? Um, I spent years in my entire 20s thinking, I haven't seen a dua or a dua that I really want accepted the way that one was accepted so quickly. So I always would study. I'm like, what was I in? Sometimes I would even sit in my room and picture. I was like, was I suffering? Was I, like what was the level of my sincerity? Why then? And I kept thinking, maybe because I don't know. And to me, it just didn't make sense because I was a better person now. Wouldn't that also mean my du'as would get accepted? Back then, I wasn't praying. Yeah, Allah still accepted my dua and then saw it in me to guide me. Right? So just to me, there was just so many things that just wasn't connecting, And so I mean, it didn't stop me from going, like when I tell you, and I said this on my episode, I said I was literally obsessed with my religion. Like when I tell you, I had so many phases.
Yeah.
I lived at the mosque. I remember my mom used to give me advice. She'd say, listen, your first masjid is your house. That's what I see how my mom would give me. She's like, what is, because I would literally run and clean the mosque, but my room would be a mess. So she'd be like, does that make any sense? You go there, you rub the walls of the mosque, but you come and you live like a 14-year-old boy. That doesn't make sense. And so
Yeah.
it's just because I just loved being there. I love the atmosphere. I love the relationship I was building. I liked who I was. And I just wanted to stay in that position. And obviously I learned a great deal about, dua and ibadah. And I mean, when you don't know anything about your faith, and then you go and you're learning, you become kind of like a kid with pixie sticks. You're just like just chugging down anything that's you just don't like see anything else. And I always say, when I see young people who are in their 20s practicing their faith, they're like really overzealous. I'm like, I've been there. I've been there.
Like
Elsewhere.
you'll
You
go through that phase. But you said something really powerful at the like when your du'as were being answered and you were trying to rationalize it, right? Like, well, I'm not praying. Like, how is this working? You're looking for like an explanation. I think that's such a powerful point that so many people get stuck on when either they're not making dua or they're making it half-heartedly because it has to make sense to me. I have to be at a certain level in order for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to answer. I have to be worthy on some level that I think in order for my dua to be answered. And like that's not how dua works. That's not how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy works and his guidance, his hidayah. Like that's all risk. Right? Guidance is a form of risk. And I think like that's such a like we bring that worldly relationship of like, well, when I'm only, to
Yeah.
be successful, this
Yeah.
should happen. Whereas Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, like ask and I answer the call, I answer the caller. right? And obviously it's tied to obedience as well. But sometimes like that obviously opened the path for you to mashallah start on, you know, coming closer to Allah, increasing alhamdulillah in your ibadah and who you were and who how you understood Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala more. Like that dua being answered became a form of risk and guidance for you. Would you
Yeah.
say that?
Yeah, I think, and you make a really good point because I was driven by results. I took
Mm,
as an academic, right? You get an A plus, you get a chocolate, right? You get this, you go here. You excel here, the doors open up. And so when the
yeah.
world teaches you that the world is written by results and who you are, how good are you? Are you deserving of this? When
Yeah.
that world teaches you that, then obviously, naturally, you're gonna look at Allah that way. He's like,
Yeah.
well, I haven't been a really great Muslim, so I'm kind of embarrassed, right? I don't
Mm,
have any results to earn what you could offer me. And I guess I came from that kind of thinking because that's the world I was in at the time. And I didn't
yeah.
realize that I was still doing that thinking even after, learning Allah. And I just wasn't learning him in the way that he wanted to be understood. You know what I'm
Mm,
saying? And it took
yeah.
it took a lot of beating down, ego wise and mentally, because obviously, like, I love being at service with people. Everybody has this thing about them that no matter how much they do, they don't get tired of it. I've seen it in people who serve their parents, subhanAllah. I was like, how do you never get tired? Like, but it's a thing about them. It's just that they
Mm,
can serve their parents and not get tired. And there's others who just give sadaqah. Wallahi, they don't have a dollar, but it's so easy for them to give sadaqah.
yeah.
And then there's some people, since they were 13 years old, they never missed a salah. Like they
MashaAllah.
never missed one. And I'm like, how does that? So, like, how do you were 35, like 13 to now, you've never missed. And it's like
MashaAllah.
some things, subhanAllah, some sorts of acts of ibadah that comes easier for people. For me
Yeah.
personally, the one that I've assessed is that I never get tired of being at service of people. In terms of like being good company, being a good friend, never tired of them. You
Yeah.
could you could be so bad to me, and I'll still find a moment to think it's fine. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't pour into me, because
Yeah.
I'm not being a good friend to you because of what you can offer me. I'm doing it because that's who I want to be, like that's how I always
Yeah.
want to live. And I know other people don't necessarily,
Yeah.
are okay with that. Sometimes people used to describe me as naive. I think you're so naive.
Mm,
And I used to get frustrated. I said, I'm not naive. When are you guys gonna realize this is a choice?
yeah.
I'm
I'm
choosing.
aware of what's
Yeah,
going
like I'm
on.
actually quite conscious because I just couldn't understand how I was so open to forgiving all the time.
Mm,
Letting things roll off my back. I'm like,
yeah.
I said, like, listen, like I
And
understand humans, I understand people, but I ultimately want to be a type of person, and that's my goal. So I'm not moving based on your metric, like what you do, how you do, what capacity you had. Maybe
mm,
I'm gonna give to you from whatever I can, and
yeah.
hope Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala recompensates me for that. And so for me, everybody
Yeah, but
has.
that's so powerful though, right? Like what you just said, like you don't determine my metric. You don't set my standard. I feel like there's that powerful story of like Umar bin Khattab then who when the Sahabas had captured captives, and unfortunately what was happening was when they were capturing Muslim captives on the other side of the battle, they were pouring acid into their eyes. And so when the Muslims captured them now, some of the Muslim, soldiers did that. And so Umar bin Khattab comes and he's like, what are you doing? Like, this is not what we do. He's like, well, they've been doing, he's like, they're not our teachers. And I
Mm,
love what you just said. Like, you choose, like, you're like, I'm fully aware, but I choose to still, like, see good, or I choose to, like, ignore or overlook that. And I'm like, so much of our practice or relationship, like, it's choice. At the end of the day, you are responsible and you have, alhamdulillah, the responsibility to choose. Right.
yeah.
And like, do you choose well? Like, it's so
Mm,
empowering, I think, in a culture where there's so much helplessness, which I think feeds like I mean it chips away at your iman, that helplessness, right? And I think like making dua is a choice. I choose to have hope in Allah, and so this is a manifestation of that. All of you, the beautiful acts you just expressed, I'm like, what a mercy. Like Allah gives us this variety because everything speaks to
yeah.
other people, and you have a choice to like step into one of those. There's no excuse.
Yeah, I honestly believe I'm in the belief that everybody has a gift. And when I look at somebody, I can either say, I know you gift are, but I don't know if you're utilizing it. Like
Mm,
I can reckon when someone isn't utilizing their gift. And I love when I'm in conversations with people, you're really good at this. The Ummah can need, needs this. I love having that
yeah,
conversation because I know everyone's uniquely different, but not everyone is stepping into that gift.
yeah,
SubhanAllah. It only just weakens us as a
yeah,
collective when we're holding back. Or maybe we're using our gifts for the wrong reasons and for
Yeah.
the wrong side,
Yeah.
and there's a lot
Yeah.
of us that do that as well. But it was
Yeah.
also, and I have to admit, it was also my greatest heartbreak a little bit, because there come a point where you enjoy being at service to people, and then the world tells you, okay, well, you don't have time for that anymore. You need to start getting real, right? And
Right.
when you live in this what I call capitalistic society, you're on a hamster wheel, which
Yeah.
is like, and I remember I had, gone to school. I took time off and then I went back to school, and I wanted to get a part-time job, and I was in my last year, and I was working at IKEA. Now, I love IKEA. I love that place.
That is so funny. That place, I've been twice in my life. It's a maze. I felt scared and overwhelmed.
Yeah, but did you know that it was inspired by creating like a casino? That's why there isn't any
I was
windows.
just gonna say that. That's what I felt like because you can't see no clocks, no windows. Oh
So,
my God.
so
There's so
let
much
me tell
psychology behind it.
so let me tell you how Allah set me up at working at IKEA, which I believe is a type of market. That market is only heedlessness. I don't see the sun. I don't know when Salah is happening. I'm in a brick to brick. Listen, if I work at a grocery store, I still see the sun.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? When I work, I still that place. Absolutely not. I remember thinking, I'm at the worst type of environment. This is like in the service industry, this
Yeah.
is the worst place. And so I didn't reckon until, remember, I had to start putting it in my stopwatch. I was like, what the heck? What time is it? What's going on? And obviously in IKEA, it's all about getting lost. Their whole goal is to waste your time.
SubhanAllah.
That is the entire objective. And you're not supposed, you ever walk around IKEA and you can't find the workers? There's a reason.
There's a reason. Oh
A
my
reason
God.
for that. If we were
Although you need to do spiritual retreat in IKEA. We need to walk people through, be like, this is
honestly,
dunya.
I can give you a dissertation of the why that place it sucks the iman out of you. And imagine, some people just spend an hour in there. Well, like people minimum on an average spend an hour and a half in that
Mm.
place, right? And imagine working there day in day out part time wise. I would say it was not a coincidence that I was iman wise was at the lowest when I was working at
SubhanAllah.
IKEA. There was not a coincidence. And I knew it because I could see just the infrastructure of it, how I felt in it. And I remember speaking to the people that work there because they're really nice people for the most part. I think IKEA
Yeah.
really tries to be there for customer. Just in case
Oh
any
my
IKEA
God.
person listening, just in case any IKEA person listening, they do have opportunities for people to, for example, they have an area to pray. They have an area to pray. I wouldn't say that every our workplace did, but when I think about IKEA and I think about my time, I remember being at the bottom of my, like iman and just my direction in life. And when I think about IKEA, I just think about the prayer room during my break. My break's always between 1:45 and 2:15. Going there to pray, dude, and sobbing. Okay, just going to pray in there because I had to bring a prayer because they didn't have prayers. It's a nice dark room. Too dark in my opinion. I wish I had some sun in there, but the place has no sun anywhere. And I just remember spending so many time, like so many hours, like every time I had a chance, I was just in that. My coworkers would say, "Why are you always in the meditation room?" They always say to me, "You're always just even you go in there just to eat." You know, I'm like, I desperately need a masala. Like this is just it's killing me. It's eating my soul. And I remember spending like time in there and asking Allah, like, and it, subhanAllah, now that I reflect, it's exactly very similar to the first time I made dua, the very first time for Allah's guidance, because I was at a place where I said, I reckon, like, I know this is not the way to live, you
Mm.
know? And I'm at a place where I can't, I'm not at service of people. I work, I go to school, I come home. Before I used to go to the masjid, I didn't have time for that. And so for me, there was this neglect, this spiritual neglect that I was feeling because personally everyone's different, but I really thrive in community. I really do. I
Mm.
have my moments of isolation, but I thrive in community and in community ibadah, community conversations. I'm just a community girl. And
Well,
here,
we're built for connection, right?
yeah, it's just until today, when I watch the haram and I see people praying next together, it still brings me to tears. It's my favorite. It's my
Wow.
favorite miracle. My favorite visual miracle is seeing people stand feet to feet, shoulder to shoulder, and bend
Yeah.
at the same time and get up at the same time. It's still my favorite. Some people it's the sunset, some people it's the mountains. For me, it's the collective prayer that
SubhanAllah.
dazzles me. You
Yeah.
know? It's just dazzling, the white and the black and the just the different back. It's just dazzles me. That's why I love the haram so much. You know, people were like, "Oh, you don't like me." Just something about the haram to me is just it just feels like submission at the most highest degree and most beautiful, in my opinion. And so when I think about that dua in IKEA, there's something that sticks out mostly was, is telling Allah my gift. I said, Allah, you gave me this gift, but I'm not using it.
Mm.
I know what that is. I know that like I do well in community, but here I am not finding any opportunity to be that. Am I just meant to pray, eat, sleep? Is that all I'm just meant to, do on this planet? And it caused such a grief because I didn't imagine that for myself. I didn't,
Yeah.
and here I was just feeling really disconnected because I spent so much time in community here. It's coming to an end. It's like, oh, you're not a kid anymore, Ada. You have to be responsible. You have to be eldest daughter. You have to, you have to,
Yeah.
take up roles that were different in my early 20s or even my mid 20s. Um,
Subhanallah.
and it's so crazy because when I think of people who met me when I was 24 or 23, they always say, you were just you just loved your dean so much. Like I remember my friend always says to me, I picked you up because I would make friends at the masjid. I give them cute nicknames. There was one girl I called Heater Girl because she'd always in the masjid with a heater. Have you ever seen somebody walking around with a heater? Electronic
Yeah.
free heater. And I used to call her. She was new. I never
Oh,
seen her because I would know who was new and who wasn't. That's what I'm telling you, Roger, where I was at.
like that's your
I knew
quality.
I knew who was new in the mosque, who wasn't, who was a
Yeah.
regular, who wasn't, and she was new, right? And I used to go to her and say, "Hey, Heater Girl," and she thought it was so funny, But I was just trying to build that connection with her, and she said,
Yeah.
"Yo, I met you." She's like, when I think about you, Alan, I think about when I picked you up from you because we were hanging out. She's like, I picked you up from work, and you were working at this really high-end clinic, and you were a receptionist. So I thought, I seen you at the mosque. You're wearing this long jilbab. So I'm thinking I'm gonna see you in a regular hijab, a skirt, and because it's a high-end posh area. She's like, when I saw you come out in a jilbab, I literally gasped, right? And
Mm.
I remember opening the door, seeing her saying, "Did you wear that to work?" And I said, "Yeah, what's the problem? I wear this everywhere." And she's like, "And they let you?" I said, "I don't give them an option.
Mm.
I don't give them an
Yeah.
option." And so here I was, this very strong, like resolved person, but here I was at the
Yeah.
end of my 20s thinking, what am I doing with my life?
Subhanallah.
And feeling
And,
really,
and so, as you're thinking this question though, because what's so interesting is you're like you were having these conversations with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like this moment where you're sharing you went to the breakout room or the prayer room and you're feeling like pulled and you're still like in that pain talking to Allah. What was it that kept pulling you and even asking you these questions of like, I know I have this gift. I know I need to do better. I know this is not the life that I want to live. Like what was pulling you to dua? Because I feel like there might be people right now who are listening and they might feel that pull, but we don't always act upon it. Or they might be, subhanAllah, I'm talking, not I'm talking, what's the word? It's not coming to me, but talking themselves out of it, right? Like, okay, let me focus on what I can do. You know what? This is what the situation is. Like, mashallah, just kept coming back to this conversation with Allah.
yeah. I think um I think there's something that happens to people often if they're paying attention where somehow you wake up.
Mm.
Like for example, like one day you'll take the same walk every day on the same road and the tree looks the same. And then one day you'll take the same road again. And why does the tree look different? People look different. You start to pay attention to things you never pay attention to. And they start to bring grief, right? Like
Mm.
something changes. This is, I can describe it as being awake. It's like one day you realize you were sleeping and then you just feel like you're awake. And all of a sudden everything hurts. Everything is like dark. It's like, it's not even something you ask. It just comes. It just enters your heart and somehow nothing is like what you want. And it's just, and it happened to me when I study this, when I'm really like analyzing it, that wakefulness when you're waking up, it's like it's also that comes from Allah. It has to be because I didn't wake up thinking, oh, there's a problem. I wasn't conscientious. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? One minute you are conscientious, and so when I think about those two themes, it's consistent on both. But you
Yeah.
know, asking myself the questions all the time, which is the simple is what is my purpose? Am
Mm.
I living that purpose?
Yeah.
And if this is something that's beyond my control, am I speaking to the one who understands my purpose better than I do?
Yeah.
And honestly, I can't have that conversation with a human being.
Yeah.
That train of conversation, all the I can't even have with you. What can you tell me about my purpose other than, oh, I think your purpose is this, but you
Yeah.
don't know my purpose. All I know is like I know my ultimate purpose, which is to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But I mean, like, what is the work?
More specific. Yeah.
Yeah, like the actual day to day. This
Yeah.
is where I go. This is my little area. This is my little, what's that? You
Yeah.
can't have that conversation with me and tell me anything.
Mm.
And so there's even a limitation between you and I in that conversation. But there
Yeah.
is a limitation between me and Allah. And so
Alhamdulillah.
when I say to Allah, subhanahu wa ta'ala, like I know, like I'm what I'm asking is quite divine. I'm asking Allah, like, what's the path?
Yeah.
What if I have a term here, what's my term?
Yeah.
What's my term? What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to leave behind? Because I know the best of us in Jannah didn't just live aimlessly. They didn't just I just go here. I know they didn't do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I know they saw that path that led them to there. What
Yeah.
does that path look like for me?
Yeah. Um,
You
I feel
know?
like you just captured the essence of what it means to live with intentional dua. So it's like you started this journey, mashallah, asking for guidance. Then you asked, as that got maybe deeper or clearer, you became aware of maybe the strengths that you have. Then it's like, yeah, Allah, what's my blessings and what are my strengths that I have? And then from that, it's like, what's my purpose in this? And how do I contribute? And I think so many times that aimlessness you're talking about, and you started off, contextualizing your story, which was really powerful. Like many of us go down that path of, again, of what our parents have set out, right? Like here's the degree, you get the job, and that is what success is. And sure, there's a path for that, but that can't just be it. And I think like when you bring, again, living with Allah subhanahu at the center and living with dua, it's this conversation that you're continuously having with your Lord. And for you, like clearly, alhamdulillah, that journey, what it opened up, the blessing upon blessing, alhamdulillah, that opened up for you. Because you're right, you can't have that with another human being. There's no one that will understand. And that is Allah's design.
Yeah. And I reckon it's sometimes you can look at it negatively and be like, oh, I feel really alone. But I feel like it's kind of like when somebody wants to pull you to the side, it's like we need to have that one-to-one conversation. And some
Yeah.
one is the most impactful. And I think a lot of us are scared of that one-to-one. I've noticed, like, I'll have
Mm.
conversations with my friends, and I always say, like, the late 20s and early 30s are the most pivotal. Everybody's a little uncomfortable. Everyone's a little bit unsure. And I'm like, I mean, who are you talking to? Who are you talking to about this unsurety? Like if you
Yeah.
feel in limbo, like isn't there a reason you're in limbo? Maybe this is there's two paths in front of you, you just can't see it. But what Allah
Yeah.
needs that conversation with you is like, Allah, I want the path that is righteous. I don't want the path that is like my demise. And
Yeah.
it's like, and subhanAllah, Razi, the part that's such a miracle is no one really taught me. It's just something that felt right. Like now when I look at lessons, when they talk about Tawheed, right? Oneness of Allah. You talk to Allah alone. You do with no partners. Like I understood that in theory, but in
Yeah.
practice it's a different like understanding. And so, but
SubhanAllah.
alhamdulillah for the fitrah. The fitrah, it knows his Lord, it knows his creator, it understands like
Mm.
deeply. And sometimes what this world is teaching us is not to listen to ourselves. SubhanAllah. It
Mm.
teaches us to deviate that which is natural, which is
Yeah.
like sometimes when something with tragedy hits me, naturally, subhanAllah, I'll just look up. Always. It's just natural. I'm like, has be Allah. Like, I just
Yeah.
naturally just look up, or I
Yeah.
naturally like stop for a minute and think, um, like subhanAllah, like even recently an accident happened where it could have been really bad. And I remember thinking, did I read my CAD? I'm like
Mm.
conscientious of something higher than myself. Because I reckon I'm just a movement in this bigger picture.
Yeah.
But my life is completely intuitive of just how Allah Santa plays it out to me, but also my connection with him. So it's like
Alhamdulillah.
it's the practice of like Allah's oneness. What does that
Yeah.
actually mean in you? And I
Yeah.
I think a lot of people live in theory, man. Like a lot of people live
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
theoretical. Everyone that if I give you an answer, you can give it to me, but your actions don't
Yeah.
match the theoretical thing that you quote
Yeah.
unquote believe.
How are you actually living the belief that's supposed to be in your heart? But you
Stuff.
know what you're saying is like that idea of listen, sometimes being alone, listening to yourself. So, Ibn Atta says like when Allah pulls you away from the people, it's so you can come closer to Him. So like there's a healthy isolation. And I'm not going to go into like loneliness because there's an epidemic of loneliness. We're talking about healthy loneliness. And so don't take it out of context. But the other part that's really important, I'm like, what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala constantly say in the Quran? Do you not sit and reflect on my signs? Like he's always speaking to you through his signs. It is, are we listening? And in an age of like, of course, digital distraction, but just distraction, period. You know, for people like, I don't feel close to Allah. You know, I'm not sure if Allah's hearing me. I'm like, he's speaking to you constantly. Are you listening? Are you listening? Right? And I feel like in the calamities, in the happy moments, constantly, like his signs are there, his words, that lived reality, that lived practical tawheed that is there. Are you listening? Are you engaged? And like as you, you know, I think you really nailed it. Like so many of us are afraid pausing and listening. We're so afraid of like what Allah might be telling us because is it affirming like my lifestyle? If it's not, I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
I'll do that.
It's a scary thing. We
Yeah.
have to say it for what it is, because if what you're hearing is saying you're living wrong, you need to, this needs to change, and it's a big change. And then you're thinking, am I ready for that change?
Yeah.
You know, it's a big conversation to have within yourself, because you can't lie to
Yeah.
yourself. There's no audience, you know? And so,
Yeah.
and the moment you're conscious of it, it changes everything, you know?
Yeah.
SubhanAllah, it changes everything. And you feel like either you're living a life that is hollow, and I think a lot
Yeah.
of people are living a life they don't want to live, but they're
Yeah.
choosing it anyway because they're scared of the alternative.
And it's
I
been
tried today.
handed to them. They're not even choosing it. It's like, oh, well, this is what society says, this is what's supposed to be. And so we just step into the mold and think like, and then of course that's what leads to, I think, a lot of the, you know, mental and crisis that we see because the mental health, because I mean, I think so many people have just taken on someone else's story and just try to fit themselves into it. And of course, as believers, you know, alhamdulillah, I pray with the Gaza effect. So many people are waking up and like, wait, this isn't what I wanted. I don't want to compromise anymore at work. I just had a mashallah sister today. She's like a top executive in her company and she started praying at work this week and she doesn't wear hijab and she takes her prayer mat and she's like, I don't care anymore. Like I'm going to pray. I'm not going to compromise to be accepted and fit in, you know, by these people anymore. And so alhamdulillah, like there's this awakening happening. But I want to come to your awakening. Take me to, so alhamdulillah, you go on this journey, you start speaking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, your purpose, you know, you feel more and more pulled to it. And then you sit down to write, you know, your du'as for what you're seeking. And I don't, you know, I've heard the story. I don't want to like spoil it, but again, like there's obviously so many blocks that you overcame to even sit down and be like, I'm going to be crystal clear in what I'm asking of Allah. And I'm going to have such high hope in what I'm asking of Allah. So like take me to that because that like again, visionary is about dua. We want to connect people with here's like the powerful case study of someone, you know, inshallah, that they can feel inspired by who unlocked that for herself, who started living and asking and calling upon Allah as we should. So take me to that place.
Well, I first want to start to say that I'm a visual person. Okay.
Um,
I have to be able to picture it. I mean, I'm on the podcast, it's not video, but if you notice, my language is very descriptive, right? Like when I talk and tell stories, I'm very descriptive. I'm very a visual person. And so, I mean, I was listening to a lecture by Sheikh Mohammed Sharif, you know,
yeah,
and he was all about like, you know, he played you know, whenever you listen to his lectures, you feel like he's talking to a version of you and he's combating, like, you know, the one that's limited and has a more of a closed mindset. And he's like, like, you know, he uses language like raise your dad. Why are you playing small? Why are you doing this? I'm like, it's kind of reminds you of football locker talk. It's like,
mm,
get up. You could do
yeah.
this. Get your head in the game. Why are you like it's very like I've never
Who's
had
gonna
something like
carry the boat?
you know, yeah. Like he's all about like really getting in that game mindset,
Yeah,
but also not looking from a place of limitation, but also empowering yourself and saying, I could do this.
yeah,
I can live the life that I'm imagining. And the only barrier is me. That's what football locker talk is. The only barrier is you. It's not the ball, it's not the stands, it's not the crowd, it's not your past mistakes, it's you. And so I really liked his way of thinking. And so I often listen to him. But you know, when I started the podcast, initially, you know, what really stopped me from doing it at first was I was afraid that like I wasn't the right person for it. You know,
yeah,
I thought, you know, maybe I'm just not where I need to be spiritually in order to, you know, lead on to this project. But then I tried to reframe it and say, hey, listen, I'm just gonna tell stories about people that I am inspired by. It's not about telling you this is the way to go, but rather this is what's deeply impacted me. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
And this is coming off of I left IKEA, I made the big decision to just be unemployed. And then I was like, I just finished university and everyone's asking me, what are you going to do next? I had no idea. It was debate. I hated that question. I was debating my existence. I don't know. And I got to a point where I started to tell people, Allah hasn't told me yet. I'll let you know when he tells me. And people would laugh when they hear that. I'm like, I'm completely dead serious. I actually have no
Yeah.
idea. Like I actually have no idea. I'm waiting for him to let me know. And so I for a long time I was like, while I'm in this place of limbo, let me do good. Let me participate
Yeah.
in good. Let me facilitate. We're in COVID, we're locked up. I'm in my bedroom. I'm not in the masjid. I'm not in my safe place anymore. And I'm feeling really isolated. But I know others are feeling it. So let me tell stories. So obviously I launched my first story. I expected 2 people to listen. I mind you guys, I was not an influencer. I had no following. I was just a regular girl that listened to Canada. I want to say that completely now because people think when they look at
Yeah.
me, oh, you've always had. Absolutely not. I was the girl this accidentally happened to. And I don't say accidentally like Allah didn't plan it, Allah did. But I'm just saying for me, when you look at my POV, it was simply, I'm gonna just tell a good story. Host and go to bed and go on with my life. Right? Obviously, things happened with the podcast that was beyond our understanding. It was quite extraordinary. Nobody had ever
Yeah.
seen it before, right? When I talk to people, say like the numbers that you guys were pulling in just 4 months was out of this world, right? But before I get to kind of how that led there, let's talk about the Ramadan before. Ramadan before was the Ramadan I, for the very first time my entire life, 28 years of living, because I was 28, where I wrote down my du'as. Because Sheikh Muhammad Sharif said, and I've never taken visionary before, I couldn't afford it, right? I'm telling you guys, I'm a broke student who just left IKEA. I could not afford it. I couldn't. And so for me, I lived off the 15-second clips on YouTube, right? But you know what? I listened to those YouTube clips very thoroughly because I'm not
MashaAllah.
the visionary will be able to kind of explain to you, but those clips are quite impactful if you're really listening, right? And so something he said, which shocked me a little bit, was he basically did like a challenge because I dare you to write them. Like it was like a video where he's like, I dare you to write them and tell me if next year, if not, but he said 60% of those are not accepted. You know? And I was like,
Yeah.
bet I'm gonna take him up on it. Like I remember telling like that conversation we had. It was in the middle of a pandemic. I was like, what? I'm gonna take a bet on that. You know what? He's saying this is a case study. Let me make myself a case study. And if it doesn't happen, I'm gonna send him a worded email. That's what I told myself. Send him a worded email, explain to him, saying, well, it didn't work. So can you explain to me what I did wrong? That was the plan, right? Was I guess maybe I'm kind of embarrassed to say that. Maybe I was trying to prove him wrong a little bit, that things didn't happen quickly because he essentially was trying to tell me things happen very quickly. I said, brother, the last time a dua got accepted instantly was when I was 20 years old. And I haven't seen that since. Everything it has been accepted. Obviously, there's du'as that I'm not even conscientious of. They're obviously been accepted. But the ones that I'm talking about, I really wanted. They were very specific. Um, didn't have that same, has never like been strictly answered. And so here I was essentially trying to prove him wrong, you guys. It sounds so bad when I think about it, but I think I really wanted to test what he was saying because I've been making dua for years. I haven't yet see anything. And one of those dua lists that I had over the years, one that was consistent, was 2 things: for direction in life, right? And work, that I would feel comfortable enough that I could wear my hijab, I could pray my salah, I could be free, and also to feel like I could do work that mattered. Like it felt like it had meaning in it, not what I was doing at IKEA or any other job that I might have got into, because I was also applying for law school. But I just, again, like I just couldn't see myself doing that. And so that was one of it. And the second was taking my parents to Ramadan. So those are 2 things
Mhm.
that were really important to me. And I've been making them
Yeah.
for not 4 years. I've yet to see this at all formulated in front of me. And of course, as any human being, 7 years in, you get down about it. You start to think, maybe I'm too much of a sinner. You know, maybe I'll see them when I become better. Maybe this is my own doing. Maybe, and then I'll have moments of positivity, like it's coming, like just back and forth. But here we are on this fateful day of Ramadan and of 2020, and I'm deciding to write my du'as. Um, or was it 2019? It was 2019. Make it to write my du'as. And so I remember I wrote it down. I have a picture of it because I posted it, right? I said, number one, um, let me find a drive. Let me be, and this, guys, I'm gonna be real with you guys. I never saw myself as an entrepreneur Never in my entire life. This is something Allah chose for me. Okay. Never in my entire life. I don't even have the stem of an entrepreneur. I'm just so chill. You know what I'm saying? But it's just a path that I've in. But what I asked Allah was simple was let me be part of benefit. Let me be part of benefit. Let me support the ummah with whatever talent I have. Use me. Don't replace me. Simple. Number two, let me take my parents to Umrah and let me be the one and my hard-earned dollars to take my parents to Umrah. Give me that honor to be their, their kid, because it mattered to me as a first generation to be the person that takes their parents. Now, this seems impossible to me because who has 10 bands, $10,000 sitting somewhere, take their parents? I'm barely, surviving. And then here I was asking for purpose, even though application season is due in 8 months. But I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna bite the bullet and just trust Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's going to fulfill and find me a way. But I won't lie and say that like I was completely like, enthralled. I was just like, I have to do it. I'm gonna test it, but I've been let down before. It's okay, type of thing, Um, now obviously, looking back now, I'm quite embarrassed. That's why my episode, when I talked about taking my first Umrah, it's called "Had I Known." Had I known what
Yeah.
Allah had planned for me, I wouldn't have been that kind of person. I wouldn't have spoke in that. I wouldn't have that kind of mentality. So
Yeah.
there's always a little bit of regret because I want to rise to the occasion. I want to be the type of believer that says that's Prophet Musa alayhi salam looking at the at a bossy and thinking, how am I gonna get these people? But what does Musa say so epically, right?
Yeah.
He says, Allah will help me, even though he sees water and thinking that's
Yeah.
it. That's the catches right now.
That's
But I've
all.
always wanted to be that believer. But I didn't have the make of it yet. Like I just didn't know how they got there. I don't know how, like how a person just gets to that place and has this unwavering belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even when they're seeing like fear or like limitations or barriers in front of their face, dead in their face. You know? Um,
How do you let that not stop you and be, how do you not belittle what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can do and what the possibilities are because of that? One of the things you're just saying is reminding me of something epic that Sheikh Mohammed would always say when he would start the visionary program. He's like, I remind myself always, and he's like speaking to something, I remind myself, Muhammad, you better have big du'as because Allah is going to answer these and you don't want to come back with regret like, oh, I should have asked for this.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's so crazy. It's part of the grit for me is still there because for me, it's not about the job, except it's the person I was when I was making it. Although what I said was extraordinary, I was asking for big things. I was,
You
but
thought it was big.
oh, I thought it was big. I mean, things could be bigger. Things could always be bigger. But subhanAllah, like Allah doesn't have this one wish and that's it mentality, right? Allah said that there's always plenty of opportunities for him to accept our du'as. But at the time, it's what I need to ask, and it was what something Allah needed to show me, right?
Mm,
And subhanAllah, like, Allah is so kind because not only does He accept your du'as, sometimes He puts things in place for you to make you a lesson. Like, you're going to be not only a lesson to yourself, but those around you, right? And
oh,
that's beyond my wisdom, my understanding. Because here I
yeah.
was a year after that, I made a podcast. A year after that, he accepted my dua, and the same year I told that story, right? And that story had garnered 4.6 million downloads. And it is not lost on me that that was what Allah Subhanahu planned, right? He's like, you're gonna do this. I'm gonna accept it. He had my entire timeline planned out, And if I could talk to the girl at IKEA, praying and saying, listen, like this hardship and pain you feel is absolutely necessary. It is absolutely for you to feel lost and in dark and confused. It is absolutely necessary for you to feel like you're in limbo because the way that things will play out in the end, you would have to speak to that story. You're not going to give us some, I started at the top story. You're not going to tell that story because where's that story to for anyone? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But rather, I'm gonna use you for good. So much so I'm gonna make you a storyteller. And then you're
Yeah.
going to spend 2 years of your life telling stories about other Muslims of people I have given mercy to remind others of that.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm so shy to say that, Razia. Wallahi, Allah my witness, I'm so shy to say that because only
Yeah.
Allah knows, what His plan in terms of my journey is with storytelling or TDS platform. I only have hope and benefit. But it would also be unfair to say that the path that I've decided to take wasn't also a path that Allah designed for me. It would be so, it would exclude him from
Yeah.
divine planning. You know what I'm saying? And it's all ultimately my responsibility to do it right. Any mistake I make is my fault, right? But what keeps me going is that I can always turn back, right? I can always turn back. And that's why I'm so obsessed with stories about redemption, stories about rising to the occasion. Stories are real, right? Because I'm real. I'm as real as, a student, I'm not embarrassed either. Like, I didn't grow up in a hyper practicing family, who was in the masjid since I was 2 years old. But rather, I was a person that found Allah at a quote unquote older age. And so for me, I don't have the authority to look back and say, well, that wasn't me. What are you talking about? I just put a hijab 2011. 2011. Before that, girl, I was living a different life. 2011 is, what we're talking about. And so I don't know. Sometimes I just think, there's a reason why I'm really stories of people who came from a different life and changed because I did. And for me, it's like I have a vision that's reflective to my reality. But I didn't know that vision, that experience that I maybe at some point was ashamed of would be the thing that would inspire other people. And that would also allow me to call others to the microphone and change other people's lives in the way that Allah permits. So it
And
just
you're not done. Your journey's only starting. Your story's only starting. MashaAllah.
subhanAllah, it's truly, I always get really, really, awkward about talking about the blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has allowed me to experience, but I only share them because I hope that somebody can believe that they can experience those things too. That is the only reason why I tell these stories. And in those du'as that I made with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the way that, I hope that can benefit me, that I can benefit others, or take my parents to Umrah. When I tell you my life has changed, when I go anywhere, including my local mosque who knew me, okay, at 2011, when they see me now, they literally say, I'm enthralled by the way that Allah changed your life. They literally see that because they were witnesses of it. They saw a girl that was always here, mopping her greatest, laughing a joke, playing with the aunties, to now a person who travels the world, who, with like, building a platform where I get to hire Muslim women. SubhanAllah, Muslim women, pay them a salary. You know what I'm saying? I'm in a position where like people are, are taking the program and creating those realities of where they live. It was such a knack for me to go to Australia and to be invited to a masjid who said they started a program based on TDS. And here we are meeting them. And we're just like, when you started the program, they opened it. We didn't even know. They opened the whole program. So this program was inspired by TDS. I'm like, what? What do you mean? Because we literally, after all of us, we used to listen and talk about it. We decided to create a program around it so we could talk and have just halaqas around it. And so this program is off the back of this. I said, in some city in Australia, I had no idea about, you know what I'm saying? And it's just, I just cannot fathom. And I'm almost so embarrassed. Wallahi, there's a part of me that's so embarrassed that I didn't have good thoughts of Allah the entire time. Part of me is so embarrassed. And maybe that's why I do these stories, is that you guys don't be me.
Learn from this, subhanAllah. That husnul done, that good opinion of Allah. What's incredible, I feel like it brings us back to the verse of Surah Rahman, right? Like the more you're grateful, I will increase you. Like the more that Allah has enthralled and like in your journey has immersed, like you're just drowning in shukr. And that shukr keeps taking you to like, I need to scream this from the mountaintops. I need you to know. Whatever, when it comes to vision, or what I always share with people, like this isn't about like us needing your money in the program. Like this is about the ummah needs you to raise your du'as and stop lowering your standards for how you live your life. Like when we see what's happening in Gaza and people are like, oh, like how can I be making dua for myself when that's happening? Like how can you not? Like how can you not change your life with dua and live, inshallah, at a level that benefits the ummah than just keeping your head down and going to and doing whatever you're doing, thinking like this is all I can do. This is like that's the biggest lie that we've all bought into. And that, like shaitan uses to perpetuate so much. So, I can share that I can connect with that passion you're feeling. Where like I just want to go and I want to scream this and I want everyone to hear it and experience it. SubhanAllah.
Yeah.
That's
And, it's just, it's like an onion. Your du'as, you feel like it's just one layer, but in reality, there's so many layers that cover underneath. Like, for example, I made du'a thinking it was about me. Why did I meet other people? in the same pursuit or had the same
Mhm.
similar drives and he brought us together to fulfill one. I didn't even who even thinks about that? Who thinks right now I'm gonna make a drive tonight about me only for you to meet somebody else who made the same one who's gonna do the same thing you're gonna do together. Like for
Yeah.
example, TDS, the TDS team is phenomenal. We always talk about is when we all obviously, work together and stuff like that. We always say, it's so crazy. Like our drives are tied to each other.
Oh,
It's like we're trying to
yeah.
fulfill something, but Allah said, for example, Sophia or Sosin, my friend Nora, or my friend Aisha, or Rasiba, all of these people kept saying, yeah, I wanted to use my talent for good. You know what I'm saying? And I met you, and now we're doing it together. And it's like,
Yeah.
there's not a day we don't talk about Allah and how
Yeah.
He facilitated this beyond our imagination, beyond our understanding, and it's different when you are with people who are in that work with you. I don't know. It's just
Yeah.
different, and it only allow you to inspire you to make bigger ones. Like I've
Yeah.
only ever after meeting these people, I've only ever decided to ask for things that I'm shy to even say to you guys that I'm asking. You know what I'm saying? Because it just
Yeah.
sounds so wild. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I don't have a doubt in my mind it won't get accepted. Like I don't even have a shade doubt. And if
Yeah.
they don't, I know something greater is on the horizon in that. And so
Um,
it's
and what,
true.
I mean, one of the things I feel like with dua that I try to like remind myself of, if your dua doesn't make people think you're crazy, then you're not doing it right. Like I want my duas to feel like, that level of majnoon that the Prophet was called because he had such deep conviction and just like subhanAllah, like he prayed till his feet were swollen because just out of gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Like you want to get to that level. But one of the lines that Sheikh Mohammed would quoted, one of our students actually shared that I came taking this dua journey and I thought my duas would change, but my duas changed me. And
Mm,
that's what this journey is about, right? When you take visionaire, when you start making dua and asking of Allah as you should, it's upon like that onion that you said, right? It's the duas that change you. It's who you become. It's because you start alhamdulillah connecting with Allah subhanahu deeper. You understand his majesty. You understand that when he says that, kun fayakun, it's be and it is, like why? Why am I not asking? And then that famous line that we always quote in Visionary of Sheikh Muhammad is, who goes to a king and asks for pennies? And we're all asking for pennies.
mm. We are. Yeah, so many of us are and not feeling to our full potential. And it's just I don't know how else to shake people and say, listen, like I started this from my bedroom. And then one day we did a story and we were beating Joe Rogan, who has $120 million contract with Spotify. I don't have a marketing budget. I just want people to understand. Like, sometimes I look at people like, do you guys have any idea what the hell happened? Like, you know what happened? You know what happened? It shook everyone. It shook the non-Muslims. They said, who are these girls from a random city? Did one episode have no sound design because we were amateur. Like I won't say we were amateurs. We were just starting to develop ourselves. Alhamdulillah, now we've gotten to a certain level of quality. But at the time, some professionals will call us amateurs. And here
Yeah.
we are competing with the best of the best who's been doing this work for 12 years. Ironically, I found out he and I have the same birthday, which is even weirder. But anyways, it's so strange. I found out the other day because you both share a birthday. I said, that is weird. Anyways, but it was one of those moments where I just sat in my room and said, this happened all from my bedroom with just
Yeah.
7, 8 of my closest colleagues. And somehow Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if He decided that success was going to be ours, there was no one, no budget, no
Yeah.
nothing that was going to stop us from getting there. And subhanAllah, like we always used to say, because in our first season, we didn't really have budget for anything. So whenever I would talk to one of our producers, she'd be like, oh, yo, how are we going to pay for this? She goes, no, 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 worry. We know the biggest bank in the world. And I said, you got contacts? She said, of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's the biggest bank. We just asked him to.
Allah.
I said, so what does that mean? She's like, we're gonna make dua, we're gonna pray salah, and we're gonna do amen. We're gonna go outside in the lobby. Why forget about it? Never even let us wait to get to the door. Somehow it come to us
Yeah.
every time. You didn't even talk to Sosan, our marketing extraordinaire. Some people always ask us, how did you guys get on billboards? Wallahi, Allah's my witness. You think we did anything? We got in our inbox. Hey, would you like to be on a billboard? Is that on a billboard? On podcast to talk about Muslims. She goes, that was Allah, and it will always be Him. Our job is to remember that who we're serving, you know, Because the work on the output needs to reflect on the inside of who we are, right? We always say, if we're not doing well, it's because something has changed with us, right? We always ask each other, yo, what's your relationship with Allah saying? Are you good? Like, like, are you good? Or like, how's your iman? Because this work is really important that you're still connected to your religion, or else like this is gonna fall short,
Yeah.
and success is ultimately from Allah, not these metrics,
Yeah.
not these budgeting. It's Allah. And so
SubhanAllah.
it's just changing your framework, subhanAllah.
It's a framework, but what you touched on is that we have a little mini video by Sheikh Mohamud he made just on this. Don't use the R word. Don't be realistic. Dua is not about being realistic. So when you say, we had no budget for a billboard, you're up against this guy who has like, a huge marketing budget. If Adel had sat there and thought about, well, what's a realistic dua based on being in my bedroom and starting a podcast and I have no following and no one knows me, that's not what her dua journey was about. It was, you don't focus on who you are, you focus on the one you are asking, right? I think that's like, inshallah, for Visionaire and what we try to like help people unlock and block for themselves is that so many people are making dua from a place of what's realistic for me, what's realistic based on A, B, and C that I can see. And that's the unlocking. That's the power right there is like, I don't need to know how. The how is with Allah. I just need to know the who. So Allah's the biggest bank, as you said in that context that you were a story you were sharing. Like that's what's so powerful, subhanAllah. So
Mhm.
I could spend like probably hours talking to you and people in the chat are like, I'm getting so hyped for Visionaire this year. I can't wait. They're like, what's this video? I need to watch it. So you guys, alhamdulillah, like I'm so excited that you're here and you got to hear from Adil herself and just mashallah the passion that she exudes in her journey that she's been on. And inshallah, like I said, her story's still just getting started. I can't wait to see the bigger du'as that Allah subhanahu is going to unfold. May Allah subhanahu bring you success
All
and
of
all
us.
that you do, strengthen your team. She has such a beautiful team, mashallah, of women that she's around and working with. So pray for them. Pray for, alhamdulillah, the platform and what they are doing. But I want you to, Adil, I want to finish off. So I'm going to ask her the question. She's going to answer it after I'm going to do a quick screen share. So I want you to think about it. But I want you to just think of that person right now who might be sitting at home in their office and they feel like hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for them has dimmed and based on maybe their reality and what they're seeing, what message would you give them? So I want you to just think about it. And I'm going to share my screen for like a few minutes while she does that to just share with you guys what the challenge is for the 5-day Raise Your Dua challenge. So it's about bringing back hope, energy, positivity into Ramadan without losing steam, feeling the slump, or getting overwhelmed in this month. So it is, inshallah, going to give you an appetizer of what Visionaire is about. It's the 5-day challenge to raise your dua, inshallah, February 26th to March 1st. It's free. Any donation you make goes to orphan sponsorship in Palestine, inshallah. We have Sheikh Omar al-Shukri, Imam Khalid Latif, Ustad Dimia Zubair, Sheikh Yasser Qadi, Sheikh Omar Suleiman, special footage by Sheikh Mohammed Hamidullah and myself. And it's about, change the world with the power of dua. Right now, as I said, like when we think of, being selfish with asking of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for ourselves, that is subhanAllah, what the ummah needs right now is for us to raise our du'as, for us to, inshallah, imagine for a moment that, Allah has given us this open canvas. What would you ask? What would you ask? And so, inshallah, to raise our standards, there's going to be 5 days of it, inshallah, 11 a.m. Eastern. And if you cannot join live, the recordings will be up, inshallah, in the Facebook group. You're going to be around, as Adil was talking about. So I'm just going to scroll through because I just want you to be able to see the 5-day Raise Your Dua challenge. These are students who went through it. And so if you're like hearing about mashallah, the power of dua, and you're like, I want a dose of this, here's the topics. So you're going to join us for the 5 days, and we're going to go through the power of conversation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a reassured heart filled with contentment. How do you get to that rida? Because that's what dua, alhamdulillah, cultivates. The creative miracles in your life, knowing Allah deeper through his attributes, how to change your qadr with the pen of dua, the deeply fulfilling Ramadan. What does that look like, inshallah? How do you go into that blessed month, making the most of it? And that's why we do Visionaire, subhanAllah, through Ramadan, because it's about getting to the last 10 nights with du'as that you cannot wait to make, inshallah, during Laylatul Qadr. So may Allah make us of that. And then we have exclusive footage with Sheikh Omar Suleiman. Do you know what makes your life beautiful? Coming back to that question of purpose, and more than a cry in the middle of the night by Sheikh Yasser Qadi. How do we make dua elevated from that? And then we've got mashallah brother Jay Dean. He's someone also who's taken Visionaire and benefited from also the challenge that he took. And he just messaged me recently some exciting news. I think he's going to share it online soon, inshallah. So the link is there, guys. Join us for that journey. Unlock the power of dua in your life. We want to be people of dua. We want to be an ummah of dua, because that is, alhamdulillah, what allows the believer to have that full yaqeen and certainty. And the Prophet ﷺ said, even if your sandal strap is broken, call upon Allah. Dua is a manifestation of your dependence, your servitude, your slavehood to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you're not making dua, there's a part of you that probably is disconnected from this reality that I depend on Allah for every breath, for every moment in my life. And so, alhamdulillah, when you start living with that kind of dependence on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as Adil was reminding us earlier, that beautiful scene in Surah Taha, Musa salam standing there with unshakable conviction in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what we're trying to get to. So I invite you to come and join us. It's 5 days, 11 a.m. Eastern. If you can't join live, you will inshallah be able to watch the replay. We're gonna have a private Facebook community just for this group. So again, Super Bowl just happened, that huddle, that hype. Imagine me around people of dua with that kind of hype, where everyone's going to be just supporting each other. We're quite intimate. We created a pretty awesome community. Alhamdulillah, people do Facebook lives. We connect with each other. It's really beautiful. So there's the link. And now I'm going to come back to the question that I asked Adil. So Adil, what would you say? Imagine that person that you're speaking to, and and there's a few of them in the chat. They've been commenting.
Yeah. No, this is a really interesting question, because I think there's so many ways to answer it. But I think I'll answer the way that I would have liked to be heard. I think, first of all, I think we have to remember that dua is an act of ibadah. And abandoning an act of ibadah is it's like abandoning salah. Would you stop praying if you felt down, or you felt like Allah wasn't, listening to you? Would you do that if you're a person that, is committed to their ibadah? It's the same with dua. You have to have that kind of regimen and boundary with dua. You can't stop making it, no matter how you feel. It can't be based on how you feel. It's also recognizing that dua you were saying, it's how we, connect with Allah, how we stay with Allah, and how we need Him even until our dying breath. We need Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us that tawfiq. And I think the second thing is that, something that provided me personal comfort was I'm a very analytical person. I am. And so for me, what gives me great comfort is studying how the du'as were accepted from the prophets. Like whenever I find myself in a really bad situation, if I'm really sad and depressed, I think about when, for example, Prophet Musa alayhi salam, when he said, under the tree, the dua that he made. And I think about the type of distress he was in. And I thought to myself, am I in that similar distress? Or am I feeling the fatigue that he's feeling? I don't even, so much so I don't even know what to ask Allah. So yeah, I'm gonna just forego and make the same dua that Musa alayhi salam. I don't even know what to ask you. That's the place that I'm at. And I feel like it puts me in the same place, and it just allows me to reckon, if Musa can the dua get accepted in that moment, why couldn't mine? Because I would say that I'm in that similar feeling. Or just any I would just study the du'as of the prophets. You know what I'm saying? And study what they felt like. And one thing I really loved when I was studying Musa, for example, is that he did an act. He did a good deed after, right? He helped the women. So you know what I would do, right? I remember I make
he dua with good action.
Yes. And so, but you wouldn't have known that unless you were studying the book, right? Because I didn't know that you could just make dua and do a good deed. I didn't even know those things as a kid come together. Or, for example, studying the dua of Yunus, how powerful that dua is. Some people even say that you should make the dua of Yunus before your dua, and that you should combine it together. Bro, I was learning that there are methods. There are ways to stack up. It's like making a cheeseburger. Okay, listen. Maybe you're missing a ketchup on your last cheeseburger. That's why it tastes a bit it could be better. It could be better. You're missing do you like cheddar or white cheese? There's so many ways. I didn't know this, subhanAllah. There are so many ways to do about this, whether it's doing a good deed or stacking it a bit differently or following, there's so many techniques. I didn't know that. I'm just and so when you become more conscious about the way that you make dua and you take it more seriously, and you just as you try to have khushu' in salah, there's also dua demands that kind of khushu' as well, the intentionality. And I think people kind of think it's different, and it's not. It's not. It's not. It's the same, if not more. That's what I'm trying to say. It's not different. It's the same. And so study that. Wallahi, study that. And I promise you'll find yourself like, oh, okay, let me try it. Like you'll find yourself explorative, subhanAllah. You'll find yourself in conversation with him often. You'll even start to feel like, even if this is a good guy, he doesn't accept it, I feel good that I spoke to him. Wallahi, the fact that you feel like I spoke to him today, I feel good. Or the nights that you randomly wake up. Because I know that happens to a lot of people. You know? Like, what do you do? Do you think of that night as an opportunity to speak to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Perhaps he woke you up to talk to him. Maybe there's something on your heart. You know? And so I just want people to be conscious about the life that they're living and the relation they have with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the opportunities that are there for us to access.
Alhamdulillah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala open our hearts constantly to those opportunities and allow us to be people who call upon Him in every moment. This has been such a beautiful conversation, and I've just been loving reading the comments and people saying like they came in feeling like their hope was low and feeling so hyped, so inspired, alhamdulillah, to call upon Allah, to have that relationship with dua. And you guys, it's just there's so much, we can't cover fully here, but inshallah, continue the conversation. You guys know the Digital Sisterhood. If you don't, you need to go listen, mashallah, go and benefit from their amazing platform, their stories, and just like mashallah, the work they're doing. And I hope to see you guys inside. I'm, okay. So first of all, my team's by the way, like totally giving me heck because I'm butchering your name, and I'm like, no, it's Adad, and they're like, you're saying L, and I'm like, oh God, I was mixing it. So can you say it properly for us?
Yeah.
For us?
It's pronounced like Adar. Ain't that
Adad.
wrong? Yeah, Adar.
Adad.
Yes.
So
MashaAllah.
I was slipping in an L, guys. So it's Adad, and it means perfume, beautiful
Yeah.
scent. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make you of those who are surrounded by the most beautiful of scents, and for those Adad,
Yeah.
Jazakallah khair.
Jazakallah.
And I'm gonna see you in Visionaire, her and her team,
Yes,
guys. They're gonna be there,
100%.
inshallah.
I mean,
They're gonna be
I've
our
heard, and I personally want to say something about visionary as well. I have friends who said it's changed their lives. I had people who couldn't get pregnant and swore it was visionary that got them to the wedding. Guys, I'm not even joking around. Like, if you are at a place of fatigue and you're looking for replenishment, this is an opportunity for you to kind of to bring that hope back in. And so you can't just be sitting idle and be like, oh, waiting for something to change. You still have to act. You still got to change. You still got to move. You know, and so inshallah, there are opportunities for you to join Visionaire. And from my understanding, there's scholarships. Is that correct? Because I see people asking.
There are. So email us at support, guys. Like, don't ever let finances hold you back. I wish Adad knew about it when she back when, but you know what? Allah has a plan. And so I love that. So yeah, email us if finance is an issue. Number one, make dua. Because sometimes I'm like, I tell people it's not even about the money. Sometimes it's like just prioritizing the time and allocating. It's up here, right? So like we'll go drop it on something else. I'm like, oh, but I don't have money for this, or I don't have time to put into this. So overcome that. And like I said, join the 5 day challenge. It's going to give you, inshallah, push and boost. Jazakallah khair. And there's so many more stories we'll unpack in there. Jazakallah khair. I'm going to see you soon, inshallah. And everyone else, salam alaikum. And
Yeah.
thank you for being here with us.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you, everyone. Assalamu alaikum.
I'm Sam.